How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Cause and Effect podcast, where we introduce the cause and effect relationships that exist in golf in relation to the hand to handle to club relationships. I'm Ethan,
I'm Jonathan.
and we're the guys that are bringing the hands and arms back into golf. It hasn't been talked about enough. We've been in the industry for a while, and we've heard a lot of things talked about when it comes to the golf swing, and the hands and arms are not one of them. So that's where we come in. So if you follow us on social media, you've heard us getting pretty loud about this now because it's time. We've been thinking about this for a while. Jonathan created the golf code many years ago, and that's kind of when all this started. And then once I met Jonathan, that's when it just started kind of fueling the fire, and we started kind of thinking about how we wanted to really make an impact on the industry. And here we are, 5 years later?
Actually, like 8, but
What's that?
yeah.
Is it 8 years?
Yeah.
Really? Oh man, we're getting old. I'm going to be 30 next month, and that
Yeah.
makes me feel super old. But yeah, we're on TikTok, Instagram.
Yep,
We're starting
starting to
up our
blow up there.
YouTube. Yep, we're starting up our YouTube.
He's ruffling up some feathers.
There we go. Yeah.
And in a way
Absolutely.
that we've been wanting to ruffle up in a while, or
Right.
like for a while, because most people are kind of sensitive to try to, question the golf swing methodologies out there and like what the pros are really doing and stuff. And
Right.
and really over like time too, we look at like old players like the greats, and then you look at the new greats. Do they change a lot? Not really, honestly.
Right.
They're all great athletes. They figured out what they can do. Equipment has changed the most, I would say, in my perspective, of what alters what they're doing nowadays.
Right. And I think that's why, like, we were talking about this earlier, like when we were eating, and it's like, why are people so like defensive when it comes to like
Right.
questioning anything about the golf swing? And like, we're basically saying, like, hey, it's way more hands and arms than you think. Like, I'm sorry you have this ideology of like what you think is actually happening, but that's actually not happening. And we're not making this up either. Like, we've tested it out. Like, we're gonna do some demonstrations today. Like, we've got our little like prototype club that we have tested out all of these theories on, collected data, measured how you're pushing against it, all that fun stuff. So when he does demonstrations with us today, and you see like this giant orange brick on here, and you're like, what is that? That's just the brain that we've collected all the data from.
Correct.
But yeah, he's going to just do some demonstrations for us, just to give you a little bit more of a visual understanding of kind of what's going on. Because this is our first like actual video podcast of this. Like we've done a lot with the audio. I mean, this is our 4th episode now, I think. And yeah, this is our first video one, because this is really visual stuff. Like this
showing what the claws can do and like how it influences.
Exactly. So we're going to set this guy over here right now, but I just wanted to introduce that, because that's going to be
coming back in.
Yeah, he's coming back in a sec.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we were talking about this earlier, to get back on kind of what we were saying with the body and the hands and arms. And it's almost like back then when they were saying it was like 85-90% hands and arms, they were using like a wooden stick and golf balls made of who knows what, and it was way harder then. So if we're looking at now and we're saying, okay, the technology's better now, then wouldn't it actually be the hands and arms be more important now? Because it's almost like the equipment is like masking your inability to use your hands properly. It's like, it's kind of like masking it a little bit. Yeah.
The idea is, how much can you manipulate the handle and how it affects how the golf club face is manipulated, right? So it doesn't matter if you have a hickory shaft or you have the highest technology of, carbon fiber, shaft material that you have these days. It all comes down to really what you're doing and how you apply that pressure that's going to result in how the actual club face is projected. And so if you took Arnold Palmer or Jack Nicklaus or Ben Hogan and you gave them the new modern equipment back then, they would instantly gain 20, 30 yards and say, hey, you know what? I can actually stop swinging so much with my body and like help that out for the longevity of my career and still play great golf. And so that's the luxury that we have these days, and the pros have these days. But the guys are hitting the ball so far that it's a game of distance when you look at pros, which of course is like the whole idea.
Right.
Whoever can hit it furthest, technically can score the best or be number one in the world. But it's actually not the scenario. It's more about consistency, about how the pressures are applied against the handle,
Right.
and that will never change.
Right.
You can hit the ball 500 yards, but if you can't control it, then, especially with your game to the green, then you're still gonna be
And
struggling.
there were so many like lazy takes. Like when I looked at the comments, I was like, man, I mean, we knew that there was going to be a lot of kind of backlash because we've seen it. Like we've seen it at our old jobs, we've seen it throughout the whole industry. We've been teaching for a while. And if you try to look outside the box and think about the golf swing differently, until you start measuring it and actually showing the data and actually validating like your
idea.
methodologies and ideas, people are like very,
And even if you do, they still
even if you
question
do,
it.
like we could show them and we will, like we have all the data and we'll show it. But it was crazy to me. And another thing that really caught me was they were saying that there were better athletes now than there were back then. And that made me laugh because if you look at like Byron Nelson, Sam Snead, all
top
those
golfers
guys
back in the day
Ben
were all the best
Hogan,
athletes you can
I mean,
possibly
Jack
imagine.
Nicklaus. I mean, these guys are athletes.
Yeah.
Like it's not like they're John Daly's.
They
out
learned
there.
how to manipulate their bodies to make the golf club do what it had to do to make like an optimal performance,
I would say if you took those guys and put them on the tour now, I think that they would either hold their own or destroy the current guys on tour.
For sure.
Like that's a controversial take, but that's just showing that if they could do it with a wooden stick and a golf ball made of who knows what do you think they could do with today's modern equipment? Because golf's way easier now than it used to be.
Right.
So if we look at when kind of golf has kind of grown and throughout the years, one thing that hasn't changed is people aren't getting any better.
That's
like
the biggest thing, for sure.
Handicaps haven't changed.
Yeah.
So if handicaps haven't changed, then why aren't we starting to like...
this like secret solution to really becoming better, which is what our goal has always been, is to give this. And
like, what
you guys are only
doing?
getting the tip of the iceberg with what we're doing. We're just trying to get more people we're trying to spark your interest and get you to just kind of open your mind up to the idea that the claws are the key. How you swing the handle of the golf club is the secret to the golf swing. And once you understand that and you swing it enough, it's like that 10,000 rep rule. Like once you do enough like drills and swing the handle a certain way and you get the feeling of the face and that like relationship, then you can really understand like what's going on with your entire game. And that with our training system that we're trying to create, the 10,000 rep rule, you could do it in a month. No problem. And that exactly. You don't even have to move. So that's the idea, is that 10,000 is a lot, but it's not that hard if it's convenient. And that's what we're all about, is making it fun, convenient, and effective.
Exactly.
And that's, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at kind of what we have kind of coming like in the pipes, I mean, we're working on a lot of really cool stuff. I mean, we got our comic book that we're going to do, which is going to be really cool. It's going to be like a different take on golf instruction. And I mean, if you can learn golf like reading a comic book, like how sweet would that be?
Our scenarios are really cool. It like brings every scenario in. We got like desert, you've got like marshland, you've got water, all these
wind,
different scenarios,
all these hazards that
really cool.
that you're trying to avoid in golf.
Yeah,
we're gonna make you kind of think about those scenarios in different ways.
Yeah,
and the consequences of you not performing the golf swing properly are gonna really become like more.
It's like there's another world. Like once
magnified.
Dimples goes into the environment, then he's opened up to this environment.
Yeah.
Which could be the water characters, or the desert characters, or the plant characters,
Right,
or the tree
exactly.
characters. There's all these cool different characters by bringing the golf course to life, which is what we are doing.
Correct.
And that's going to open up everything.
Absolutely. And we're nerding out on this hardcore. Like we're doing like NFTs, comic books. We're going to do like instructional books.
Yeah.
We're going to do training aids. Like we want, this isn't, like I said, like we're not taking this lightly.
Tip
like
of the iceberg right here, guys.
Like we're being loud about this because we want to make a big impact on the industry, and we're not just like going like half at this.
And
like,
we're just starting to roll. That's the thing, is we are just getting our, our car rolling. So I mean, once it gets rolling, I mean, we are ready to go, because we've been doing this for a while, as far as thinking about how to make this this avenue to where it's simple again. We what we care about most at Claw Revolution is making it fun and like appealing to everyone, no matter who you are, whether you've just learned golf, you never played golf, or you've been playing golf for 20 years, you're a scratch golfer, you still shoot 100 after 20 years, whatever it is. we can help you out in a certain way. And it's just starting off with these basic ideas with videos and just kind of getting your mind to start thinking. Because in order to truly change with golf, you have to really understand what's going on. And
Right.
that's what we're trying to bring to life is like make these unknowns known.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, as you're learning, then you're like, oh, it makes more sense now. So it's like watching that movie where it like keeps backtracking you. You know, you watch the beginning and then it like throws
Yeah.
you back and then it jumps back forward. It's kind of the same thing.
Right.
But we're just trying to give you those little bits of information that if we knew in the very beginning, we'd be
Oh,
like, oh man, like we knew
it-
where to always revert back to
correct.
because it's so easy to revert into other ideas and thinking, oh, is this really it or not? And we have validated it is it.
It is it. Absolutely. And the cool thing is that we're not making this up either. Like this is what we've, like I said, we've tested it. We've seen what the good players do. But now when you watch golf, you're going to watch golf differently because you're going to see that all the tour players are doing this.
Yeah.
All the tour players that are playing good golf right now and understand how to control their golf club in the best way possible have the proper connection to the golf club,
Right.
have the proper hand and arm movements relative to their grip style that
Sure.
they're using. And
Yeah.
and you're going to see that. I mean, we might be promoting more of a stronger grip, but maybe the tour players are using more neutral or weak grip. That's okay. Like you
We're
have
going to break that
options.
down for you too and
Yeah,
explain how
absolutely.
there's very few that are using a weak grip for certain reasons and majority use neutral to strong. So,
Right, right.
Yeah. And
Right.
then why?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so the Masters was awesome. That was really fun to see. I mean, for one, like let's just start it off like Tiger, watching him play golf again. Like, I mean, when everything went
Making
down,
the cut's the biggest thing.
I mean, yeah, but
just
I mean,
to do that on top of everything that he went through,
just
that's
everything
a
he
big
went through to be
milestone.
watching him
Yeah.
play golf, I was just like, this is amazing.
Well,
like,
if he
I
went
don't
out
care
and
if he
shot 90 both days, it would have been a
I
different
don't
story.
care.
I mean, still, but
yeah, it would have sucked because,
yeah.
I mean, like,
To show
obviously,
he's still like he said, they asked him, they said, would you have entered this, tournament if you didn't feel like you could win it? He said no.
no,
So
yeah.
that's the idea. It's cool to have him like feeling that mental,
Exactly.
confidence. Yeah.
He announced he's playing in the Open Championship at St.
Right,
Andrews,
right.
which he's already won twice.
It's going to be big for golf.
So that's huge for golf. Golf's
Yeah.
in a good spot right now. Like, there's a lot of good young guys. I mean, Scotty Scheffler, the run he's on right now.
Yeah.
Like, let's start at Scotty. Like, can we talk about like what he does in his golf swing that makes him really, really good? And he's on this like hot run right now, and he's playing really good golf. But I mean, what category? Like, okay, so let's just start like Scotty Scheffler. We've got his like player profile. Okay, we've got his swing. We're looking at his setup position. Grip style he uses is
It's neutral.
What? Neutral grip.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means that his lead thumb and
It's at
the
about
V-
for a right-handed golfer, it's at about 2 o'clock relative to 12, which 12 is vertical,
Point up at
straight
your
up on
chin.
on the handle.
Got
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Okay, cool.
Right. So it's
So-
basically you're pointed at your like right ear
Got it. Okay, perfect.
or right eye to right ear, we'll say.
So using that grip style, what do you have to do like with your hands and arms
Well,
to make that
there's
grip style
options.
work? Okay.
You can use some club face rotation, open the club face.
Do you want to show us with the club maybe?
Sure,
Let's
sure.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And just talking
with Scotty
like-
Scheffler, his lead thumb again is approximately here. Here's that 12 o'clock position. Here we're at about, we'll say 2 o'clock. So the V or the seam here of his lead hand is going to run about to his trail eye or his trail ear. So
Okay.
the right hand is going to match that. And then when we think about what he does, so he allows the club face to rotate a little bit open to get the face toe up here, which in my opinion is always the key. The reason because when we think about the first part of the golf club, or the first part of the golf swing and how the golf club should move, the toe has to move back first. And the reason is because the club has to move in action. If we start moving our body and everything as a unit, then it is so hard to learn how to, and we'll get into this more so, lever, lag, and release the golf club. But the idea here is that when we think about Scotty Scheffler's golf swing, again, we got that neutral grip, right? He gets it toe up, perfect to the takeaway. Then as he goes up continuously from there, he maintains his position from the takeaway and doesn't really increase anything. He just rotates his hips and shoulders and lets the golf club go up. And then at the very top of his swing, he increases his hinge, which then creates an enormous amount of lag.
Kind of like Sergio.
Correct.
Got it.
And then he allows his trail heel to slide back of his lead heel, like almost in bowling, where it braces the lead side of his body. So when he comes into the golf ball, he has something to hit into. It's not like the lead side is going to be pulling through the shot like this and holding off the release. The lead side's going to hit a wall right here because the foot action, if you think about like a staggered stance, trail foot behind lead foot, the club face is naturally then going to be able to rotate over. So he uses footwork to control his release. Otherwise, to the top, he's using his hands very little.
I gotcha. Right. Yeah.
But they're a huge part of the way that he uses them, though.
Correct.
With how it, works into the swing.
His grip is perfect.
Because he keeps the club face a little bit shut to the top.
Correct.
It's not open.
Right. Exactly.
Right. If he kept twisting the club face from his takeaway and wasn't more passive with his hands to the top and he kept twisting all the way,
he'd be too open.
Then he would have to then manipulate his release at the bottom or go stronger with his grip. And then he wouldn't have to do that.
That would naturally square up the face for him because his hands are on the side of the club more. I gotcha.
And that's the whole thing that we're going to offer our users down the road is understanding what grip type is going to benefit you the best with what you can do, what you bring to the table.
Exactly. Like we said that, the golf swing was 90% hands and arms. With a strong grip, with a neutral grip, it's 80-20.
Exactly.
And with a weak grip, it's 70-30. Correct?
Because when we use that weak grip and the lead hand is more on the side of the club, like the lead side of the club, you're going to have to use that flexion to close the face. And when you close the face, well, if we come in with a closed face, the ball is not going to be getting airborne. We're going to have, contact problems to the ground as well as the golf ball. If we take it back shut and then we learn how to properly manipulate it to where it gets into an open position and then can hold that position through impact, it's more shut back. When we think about, when we get into pre-impact, like if you imagine the 6 inches before the golf ball, the heel of the golf club face is here. Has to lead the toe. Okay. We have top edge. We have bottom edge. And as you come into the golf ball, if at any point the top edge of the golf club face, even if it's open, gets too turned down, the golf ball is going to go low and it's going to go left. If we maintain proper loft, we go from that shut position and we maintain proper loft when we come through and keep it stable, we're then going to be able to hit a shot that can go in the air, which is how John Ron does it. DeChambeau. Look at any of these guys that really bow their wrist a lot in the game. Like you have to go from either closed to square, or you have to go from square to square, or from open to square relative to the 3 different grip types.
So that's
again,
weak,
we go back to weak grip
and strong.
Exactly. So weak grip again, we're going closed to square. Then a neutral grip, we're going square to square. And then we're going from open to square for a strong grip. And that means from the address position to the takeaway to then the pre-impact to post-impact. So we're covering all positions of the golf swing by just a few simple concepts.
Right. It's just, we're steering our club around us and our hands are on the steering wheel. However we put our hands on the steering wheel determines how we steer our car.
And if you got certain problems in your golf swing and you can't do certain things, then we can alter how you, you can accommodate like your alterations into accommodating your golf grip relative to your body movement. So if you want to go like really weak with your grip and bow and close the club face, then try to open it because of what you have going on, we recommend it. That's fine. But how can we then achieve like maximum consistency with that?
Like there's going to be some times where maybe we have a better player, and if he's got a strong grip and he's hoping it too much, we might err on the side of going more neutral with him and a little more body rotation.
Are going to call for different things. But that's the genius about what we're going to launch is that our program is not driven to one golfer. It's for everyone, and it can accommodate all of you.
Exactly.
Because it understands what it comes down to.
We don't have like one, this methodology, everybody should do this. Like everybody should have the core, everybody should have the claws.
I think if you're a brand new golfer, strong grip all the way, for sure. Learn it that way first, because you got to learn how the golf club really kicks by pushing against the handle sideways, because this is a sideways sport.
Right, exactly. Like you talked about that in the videos that we were doing, where you were saying the more that you're basically on top of that club with your pinky of your lead hand, the more force you can apply downward. But then also now, because you're pushing downward, you can also push sideways more.
But the rotational increase that you have to have also with the strong grip, you have to twist it more open, which then has a natural untwisting effect. It's almost like if you took tennis and you took it up and you were like taking the racket and the only movement you could have was like around your body side to side, but you
Uh-huh.
had no rotational movement of the racket, how do you hit a forehand?
Hmm.
How do you put spin on the ball? You have
Right.
to rotate your
Like
hands and
ping
arms. The
pong,
more
same
rotation
way.
you have, the more speed you can naturally generate
So we'll go back to the strong grip.
without
So you
moving your body.
without moving your body, right?
That's where it comes back.
So right, and then that's why with a stronger grip, you don't have to use your body as
Exactly.
much
You're letting the
because
rotational forces of the club do the work more for you if you can maintain your claw pressures.
right,
But they're
exactly.
but they're the minimal relative to the other grip types. The
Got
weak
it.
grip, when you bow that lead wrist and you cup the trail wrist, I mean, it's the hardest grip to maintain and the hardest one to control the face because of how much it requires your perfect body movements. You have to have perfect posture, perfect turn,
Correct.
proper sequence,
Got it.
all these things lined up to be able to even do it. And you have to be, in my opinion, if you're not like
In good
over 6
shape.
foot tall and in good shape,
Yeah.
they're like,
It's
or you're
hard.
like, yeah, I mean,
Or you're calling
John Rahm's
Morikawa.
like he's a freak
And
athlete, but
Morikawa is perfect with the weak grip
right,
and the
right, right.
bow.
But
Like he
most
does really
people are
good.
not like you have to be that one out of like a million
There's just
really to
more
be
there's
able to
more
do it.
timing that comes
Right.
into that.
Go
Like
neutral or
why?
strong. That's all we're trying to say.
Yeah,
And then
please.
if you decide you want to go that way down the road for some reason, okay, but we'll talk about
Yeah.
that later.
Like public service announcement, go
Yeah.
neutral or strong.
Yes, yes.
Please. Everybody
And if
out
you're
there that's
struggling with
watching
your game
this.
with distance or control, go to strong, figure it out that way, and then we'll go in that. And that's what our videos are going to be
Right.
on coming up really soon with the
Correct.
next chapters. We're going to be launching these, and that way we're going to walk you through the steps. Like we've talked about how the club face works and stuff relative to the golf ball. But it comes down to more of when we think about like, okay, we got the grip, we got the setup, we understand how claw pressures work, but then how do we utilize them perfectly in the swing? And again, like we said today, we talked about the different grip types and how the face is more set. But when we get into showing how the posture works, how that looks, how the golf club itself looks working around you with the 45-degree swing plane,
Yeah.
that's going to be the biggest thing. It's going to be
Correct.
so simple. And we're going to explain to you, like the drills and the shots you should be practicing. So that way, if you go spend an hour practicing, like how do you get the most out of it relative to what you're dealing with?
Yeah, you're not just like going to the range
You're not
and just
going to the
hitting
ball,
balls for hours and
yeah, you're not
hours.
going to the
Yeah.
range and just aimlessly hitting golf balls.
Correct.
Because there's
Exactly.
no point in doing that, by the way.
There's a
You have to have a
purpose.
purpose, yes. And if you don't know your purpose, then figure it out, and we have it.
And,
So
and there's a
yeah,
template too, like with the book that I mean, you've created the golf code, right? And the golf code is basically understanding, I mean, everything there is to know about golf, but in
right,
particular, the hand inputs and the club outputs,
correct.
right? So we're creating a book
We have
that
the
we're
Bible, by the way. I call it
yes, the
also
golf
AKA
Bible.
Golf Bible.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
But it's basically going to it's going to hold people's hand and
Yep.
walk them through like with exactly what you created with how your hands need to be pushing against the grip, how your body needs to be supporting that,
Right.
how your rotations need to happen. But we're going to release that book, and then as we go through these podcasts and our show on YouTube, the Clause and Effect Show, we're going to go through the chapters and go through it with you,
Right.
and,
And it's
almost
very
have like
simple.
a book
Don't
club,
think of it either as like this crazy long, like you're gonna have to read like this
like the
encyclopedia.
golfing machine.
Like no, yeah, yeah. No, the idea is that the golf swings from the weak, neutral, and strong grip type are very, very similar to each other. There's just like it all comes down to the grip type with the lead hand and how it's positioned more so, and how it goes from lead wrist flexion or lead wrist extension and how that works with rotation. That's it. So I mean, those are
Right.
really like the three variables that are the biggest difference. And once we get those, then how the club moves left, right, in and out, up and down is pretty much the same.
Right. So another thing I want to talk about too, and we're talking about like, okay, go neutral, go strong. We're recommending that. We're making a plea to the golf instruction or golf industry to please just like stop going with your weak grip and rotating your body and breaking down and pulling left. Like, please stop that. Like, understand how the club levers, lags, and releases relative to your body. But I want to talk about the strong grip and in particular the cup in the lead wrist. This is something that is kind of frowned upon in golf instruction, right? You never see anybody recommend a cup in the lead wrist. They always say like, oh, a cup in the lead wrist is going to open the face. And it would, like when we were talking about Scotty Scheffler, if Scotty Scheffler went from his like takeaway position and kept twisting and had a cupped wrist, that would be too open.
So
But
here's
for a
an
strong
interesting
grip,
thing real quick, okay? So
yeah,
when we talk about that, when people talk about a lead wrist being cupped as a bad thing at impact, a lot of it is the momentum that they think that this wrist can do from the impact position, like meeting the golf ball after. When you think about the standard idea of teaching the weight distribution with how much your legs are ahead of your body and everything, and like your sternum is way behind the ball, you're using your lead wrist flexion to accelerate the handle because you're twisting the cylinder of the golf club in a counterclockwise position, which is going to naturally create like forward momentum. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is that with like Scotty Scheffler, if you look at his upper body position, his upper body is so forward in his swing and stays right on it that he can actually control a cupped lead wrist. So if again, let's say that you had a strong grip or neutral grip, you did Scotty Scheffler's backswing, but if you were a little stuck on your trail side, you would if you were a little stuck on your trail side, you would then have to resort to flexing the lead wrist to again create that much more forward momentum.
Got it. So
or else you'd be stuck and just flipping and hitting it, open with the face or flipping.
So it's okay that so when we're talking like we want people to have a strong grip and a cupped lead wrist, like not talking about Scotty Scheffler, but just like people in general.
It's your body positioning relative to the ball. If we get your body positioned in a way where it's not too far behind the ball, like if we get your body being centered, let's say over the golf ball, you can support a cupped lead wrist at impact.
Okay, because you're pushing on the side of the handle?
Because you're able to support that.
Okay.
If your upper body leans too far away from the target, you're naturally then going to have to resort to some type of manipulation to get that forward momentum.
Got it.
Right.
Or if you don't get forward momentum, you're just going to flip the club head.
You're just going to flip it, or it's going to stay wide open. And either way, it's going to be like you're going to hold off and turn and block it, or you're going to snap hook it because you didn't turn at all and you have no control.
Got it. So, yeah, because everybody says like, okay, when you come in, when you go back, you don't want to have a cupped lead wrist. And here we are saying like, no, we want you to have a cupped lead wrist throughout the entire move.
Well, and on top of that, the idea of if you keep a perfectly cupped lead wrist and you have a strong grip throughout the swing, is your lead wrist ever going to become perfectly flat? Yes.
Yes.
That's what we said. It's open to square. It's not open to open.
Got it.
But why does the lead wrist go from cup to square?
Because you're hitting down?
If you're hitting down properly with our claw with our claw and effect, gear effect model, with how pushing against the handle in a certain way will naturally, with the way that the golf club is going to kick from its lag with how it releases, it's naturally going to straighten the lead wrist.
Oh, okay. But that's more like subconscious, right?
It is if you have your claws and everything's lined up when we get our set right in the backswing.
Okay.
We get our pre-impact right with our lag, and then we release it properly. If you don't have one of those right in a certain way, there's going to be a certain alteration. But they're not difficult things to do or practice once you understand the parameters of what you got to practice.
Right. And at impact, I mean, we're trying to push down and apply force to the handle anyway. So why not opt for the grip that allows you to push and like apply the most force, right?
From the side of the handle. Because again, we're playing a sideways sport.
Like, can you apply more pressure with your knuckles or your palm? Right. I mean, that's how I think about the strong grip when I use a strong grip, and a lot of my students use a strong grip, and I just think it's the easiest way to like
when you flex
push.
the lead wrist and your knuckles are turned to the ground, it's a different type of feeling. Like it's almost like the back of the lead hand is like the face front of the club face, which we talked about.
Yep.
But the trail hand is like the main driving force.
Got it.
So if you don't maintain flexion with the lead wrist while pushing with the trail wrist, it can get really ugly really quick.
Right.
And so if you get it more neutral, it's just so much easier because it's like more than a 50-50 kind of pushing, kind of flexing game, right?
Yeah, 50,
and then if
50.
you go stronger, it's pushing the whole way.
Got it. Okay.
So if you can just learn how to push against the handle, then again, it opens up the avenues of what you can do with it. But if you don't understand our pivot points that we're going to talk about at takeaway, pre-impact, and post-impact, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like you can go try a bowed, grip and try to do this flexion move. And, you may not get a golf ball 10 feet off the ground for the next year. But the idea is just understanding how to push against the golf club properly, which again is the whole idea. We're just trying to get you guys hyped up about this. And then we're going to really show you what to do in the next videos.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've got videos. I mean, as we're talking about this, I mean, you can probably go over to our TikTok, and I probably just released another video. And we're like I said, we're getting loud about this now. You know what I was thinking when I was teaching the other day is that nobody really talks about controlling the lie angle of the golf club enough. Like we say that
So
like
so
obviously
bring it back real quick. So
Mhm.
we talked about pushing against the handle, right?
Yes.
How do you push against the leading and trailing edge of the club face, and then break it down even more? So
What's the
the
lead? Sorry,
heel and the
show me
toe.
on the club again.
So
Leading edge.
we have the leading edge of the golf club face is here. The
Okay.
front edge.
Yep.
The trailing edge is here.
So that's like the bounce.
Correct.
If you had a
It's
wedge.
the sole.
The sole.
The
Got
sole.
it. Okay.
So then we look at the top of the club face. You have like the front edge of the top edge and then the trailing edge. So when we think about the sweet spot of the golf club, it's the trailing edge of the heel. And the reason why, because like we talked, no matter if you have a weak grip, neutral, or strong, when we come into the golf ball, the heel here has to be leading the toe when we make contact with the ball. Reason is, if the golf ball is here, how do we strike the golf ball first and then hit the ground after? And the heel has to lead because of its angle. If it comes in toe first, you're hitting the ground here first.
Right.
Then the face is going to open up because of the gear effect. And then you're going to be shanking it and who knows what else.
Right. Got it.
But the idea is supporting this. So once we get that, then we're good.
So it's because golf's a sideways sport, right?
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Why,
it's like
that's why.
So when you think about it, like let's just say this. Let's say you had the handle forward, and let's say that the club face is square here. And you took it back, let it open up a little bit. Now, as you come in, if I try to thump against the trailing edge of the club face and push down, naturally the gear effect of the club is going to unrotate. And that's exactly what we're talking about. That's how we release the club face properly.
Got it.
There's a lot of subconscious that goes on with what's going on here if we get it just before the ball properly and apply the proper forces. Again, if I take the club face back like this, toe in, and I try to push, well, this isn't going to work.
That's like Victor Hovland's short game before he improved.
That's why they always say with him, he keeps the face very shut, which is why he has a hard time with some of his short game shots,
Correct.
because then he has to go like this and drive it, which can be very effective.
Yes.
But in my opinion, for most average golfers, that's their common tendency is they don't understand how much the trailing edge of the golf club should be like driving into the ground to impact, but also how do you do that? You get the handle of the golf club leading impact of the face.
Correct.
If you're coming in impact and your club face is, equal to or ahead of your handle, you're in, deep trouble.
Yeah, deep trouble.
Deep
right.
trouble.
And another
yeah.
thing too is that, and I did a video on this earlier, and I'll release this on our social. The inner quadrant is
how do we strike that?
Important,
that's it right here.
Right.
So it's like if the golf ball is sitting right here and it's just perfectly perpendicular, say with a golf club. If I take the club face back and set it and then drive it as I'm coming through, what quadrant of the golf ball am I actually able to hit? Now, the amount of downward pressure I exert is going to determine whether I hit more of the bottom part or the top part of dimples. Now, if my club face comes in more square like this and I'm pushing down, is it more of the top part or bottom part of the outer part of his dimples? Got it. When we get more down the road into even how to hit a draw and a fade, that's what we're going to get into.
Is that nothing's changing?
Nothing's going to change with what you're doing in your swing. It's all in your setup.
Got it.
So basically, instead of being perfectly square like this for a fade, we would naturally align our body more left, angle the face to match that, level wise, make the same move, and relative to the target, it's going to create that spin.
So the heel to toe and the trailing edge, leading edge is the same for a fade? You're just hitting a different quadrant with the same heel to toe relationship.
Toe alignment and body alignment is really the last two variables that determine where the ball is going to curve.
Okay.
Once you get the basics of we'll say your stock swing.
Got it. So the stock swing is basically
a
stock swing would be a
from
draw.
a stock position, which is standard.
And a stock swing would technically be a draw. But because
it should be pretty straight to a draw. If you're square and square with everything,
yes.
We'll say just a little bit of weight on your lead side, a little bit of shaft lean, you should hit the golf ball with just a baby draw. If you're doing things correctly. Right.
Okay.
And then if you need to hit a hook, you basically align your body the opposite way. You're gonna turn your toes and your shoulders and hips more to the right.
Stagger
the face. You're gonna point to the right a little bit, and then you can even de-loft a little, and you're gonna swing more on that inside out angle.
I got you.
And you're naturally into the ball to curve a lot.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Because and I think that's something that when I'm teaching and I have students that are really struggling with drawing the golf ball, once I get their hands on the side of the handle, it just makes so much more sense to hit the inside part of the ball, right? Like why would you
if your
take
hands are starting off over here and you're trying to push sideways, you're like, this doesn't make sense.
Right.
It's like you go underneath the club. It's like all of a sudden your idea of the sideways action is so much different.
And this is why I think because the strong grip isn't being talked about enough, I think this is a disservice to every golfer in the world that's trying to get better, and the coach that they're going to or the information they're reading is saying the strong grip is a problem.
Yeah.
I think that is a travesty.
That's the
Like,
biggest thing. People just
that's
aren't
not
understanding
right.
how the biggest reason people are not like promoting the strong grip is because they don't understand it. And
Right.
what they're not understanding is the body positioning and what you have to do to accommodate it. And you have to have our presets of your body
Yes.
addressed, right? With like presetting your weight left, pre-closing your hips and shoulders a little bit. It's minimizing your in-swing movements with your body,
Right.
but then effectively supporting all the hand and arm movements you need to,
Correct.
which are then ultimately giving you more distance with less movement and less effort.
Right. You
And
don't have
like
to
you can do this till you're 80 or
Yes.
100 if you make it. But the point
I had
is
an
that
87-year-old that was doing, and he
oh,
was
totally.
doing it.
I had a guy that was 80 shooting in his 70s
Right.
doing this. So the point is that it's more about just understanding what's most effectively going to be efficient for your body as it gets older. Because you look at these tour players, right? Doing all these crazy contortions. How long is it going to be consistent?
Look at
How long
DeChambeau.
are they going to be able to have their body
DeChambeau's already
supporting it?
breaking
Right.
down.
Justin Thomas. You look at all these guys, they're just contorting their bodies in like just crazy ways. And it's like, it's cool to see. I appreciate it.
I do too.
But and kudos for them. Like hopefully
Yeah.
those have like a really good career for a little bit of time. But
Yeah.
then how do they then downgrade that? Although we look at John Daly and John Daly's swing hasn't really changed, and John Daly's
that's-
like
who
still,
cares? Like,
but
he's got
the point
perfect
is that
grip.
he's got that God gifted talent, and honestly, you look at John Daly, like he doesn't over contort his body.
No.
Like some of these guys on tour, these young guys, they're putting their bodies and legs in positions that it's like, after you do this like 50, to 100,000 times, it's going to be a problem. So
We're trying to create golf swings.
yeah,
that
we're trying to
last.
we're trying to maximize your distance and consistency, and then but optimizing your longevity of your performance of it. And that's where once we start launching our training drills and everything, it's all structured on, okay, I've got 1 hour a week because I've got 4 kids and like 2 jobs, whatever it is. But I only have an hour a week. But how do we get the most out of that 1 hour? We break it into 10-minute sessions, right? And we do it, 6 times a week.
Right in a chair.
And the idea is exactly right in a chair. And then we graduate to whatever else.
Yes.
But the idea is that it's going to be really effective and you're not going to have to leave your house to actually do it, which is really cool. Or go buy some fancy train aid or spend a lot of money. I mean, it's all household things you could create your little, claw train area.
Exactly. I mean, we're gonna have
Eventually we'll have our train aids as well. But
Yes,
I mean,
we're going to.
in the meantime,
I mean, we're gonna have the claw ball, which is really just allowing you to understand how if you were basically like sitting in a chair and your hands were stretched
Palm
straight
to
away,
palm.
palm to palm, and you put a ball in here.
Yeah.
However you move this would influence what that club face is gonna do.
And we think about it as a ball being around the grip of the club.
Yes.
So we have a cylinder and you have a sphere around it. So if I had to grip the golf club palm to palm like this, but it was out here and out here, how would that control the golf club? And really, that has a more realistic idea of what's going on with the club face. Because if I'm holding the ball and my hands are more apart, if I go left to right, you're going to see it more. If I twist it, you're going to see it more.
Yes.
Whereas when it gets to a smaller cylinder, it in your mind, you're thinking, I have to move it more laterally like this, opposed to creating that cylinder idea. And that's where it's a big problem.
That's why, like, once we figured that out, I was like, oh my gosh, this is genius. Like, we have to create something like this. We're gonna stay tuned, but it's in the palms are spherical things. In a cylinder is what makes distorting kind of that relationship with your hands to the handle such a like complicated thing. But if you take a ball, it's like, oh, well, this is a circle, this is a circle. I just connect it to the circle, and now like whatever I do with this, like I can basically create a ball with my hands like this. So what difference is this compared to holding a ball? Okay,
it's almost like trying to hold a yardstick between your palms. Because it's like a little flat thing, and we'll say it's like a foot long. And, if I was to twist it, you would see directly how much it would be twisting because it's a flat surface. Very small, though.
Right.
And to keep it secure, that palm pressure better be secure or else it's going to fall right out.
And this is the beauty of the claws, is that the claws allow you to actually push with your palms.
Right.
So you're not taking that ball and you're not squeezing it like this. I mean, we're going to be able to tell you, like, okay, this is how you have to hold it. It's palm to palm. So when you're palm to palm, you notice that your fingers are extended away as much as possible. And when we went through talking about the claws with fingers extended away from the palm, curling the fingertips, the fingers really don't have a huge influence. It's more pushing.
You put it right in those curls like he just showed you, your finger extension, create your curl. And when you put it in this, we'll say our little claw notch holster, you can maximize the effectiveness of how you alter the handle.
Right.
If I'm gripping the golf club in my palm like this or in my palm like
Oh,
this, it's like I can do things, but my fingers are going to be moving.
right.
There's no security. This is the only way to get the actual grip to stay secure is by creating the pinch. And it's just a difference of where it goes in the palm.
Correct.
Where, you know, you got a weak grip, it's going to go more up into the palm pad. Neutral's more in the middle here. And then we got all the way across the knuckle pads for the strong.
Correct.
And that's
Yep.
it. I mean, once
Yeah.
you get that, you understand how to utilize it.
Mhm.
It's game over.
It's game
And
over.
I mean, you can, you know, you can do anything you want.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, we got a lot of really exciting content coming. If you can't tell, I mean, we're super fired up about this. It's gonna be a fun ride.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking to really make some change. We want to really help people. Like when we were teaching at our last job, and I mean, me and Jonathan, we used to teach like 2,500 lessons a year.
Right.
I mean, you used to teach more than like anybody. And I wasn't too far off, but I mean, yeah, we really want to help people.
Well, after a
and-
while, you start realizing what everyone's doing wrong.
Correct. You
In
find
the same
patterns.
similar ways.
Correct.
Right. And you understand then what actually does help them and what doesn't. And when it came down to it, it was like your body supports certain things about what the club should do, but ultimately get the club in the positions it needs to be. And then if you can get the club in the positions it needs to be, then your body's going to be able to accommodate it. Like you have to be knowledgeable about what the golf club's doing first. Then you can understand what your body's doing first. If you're
Correct.
getting taught the other way around and you're just thinking, I create this big ol' in the barrel turn, centered rotation, keep my head centered, and all this stuff, it's not going to really help. Like understand the golf club first, then we can understand the body.
Yes. Like the body is important.
Of what's effective with the body.
Yes.
Because you could have what looks like the most majestic looking golf swing in the world and never break 100 because
Correct.
I've seen it.
But it's
And
like,
the guy
oh,
can hit a 350-yard drive, and then he doesn't get another one off the ground the rest of the day.
Correct.
Right. It's just like, but it's because there's too many unnecessary movements.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like I always talk about with my students, it's powerless effort,
Yeah.
not effortless power.
Right.
And if you understand the claws, you understand the hand to handle to club relationship.
And real quick, where
Yeah.
do we break that down to? The first thing we always promote is learning your short game first. If you
love the
cannot
short
learn,
game.
if you can't chip, pitch, and lob properly, hit a bunker shot, hit it from 50 yards out with your wedge, we have to get that first. I mean,
Yes.
because if you're trying to just hit your driver, you know, as far as you can and consistently, that might be a long-term goal, but realistically, your driver will get better as you get your wedge better. If you can hit your sand wedge like 80 to 100 yards with barely moving your body, and we do our presets that we're going to talk to you about, then you can hit your driver 250 yards with also not moving your body.
Correct.
And then if you can hit your wedge 120 yards without moving your body, then all of a sudden, oh, driver's going 290.
Right.
Okay.
Like
So
what a
we
magical thing.
we optimize though the entire game adequately. Otherwise, your wedge game starts to deteriorate and your driver becomes more of an optimizing factor.
Correct.
But it's like, what do you want out of your game, right? It's like you want all things to be able to click so you can play golf well.
Correct.
And be able to, in a sense, everyone wants to shoot par or break 80.
And everybody wants to hit the ball further.
Right,
too.
but hitting it 400 yards is not necessarily going to get you to break 80 or
Yeah,
to even break
exactly,
90.
right.
You have to have all aspects
It'll
going.
impress
we
your
have,
buddies.
yeah, exactly. Until you get up to that 100-yard shot
And
again,
chunk
they're
it.
like, all right, here he goes again.
I can't tell you how many times I've hit like a over 300-yard drive, and I mean you've seen it way too many times to even count.
Right.
Where I bomb a drive, and then I've got like 40, 50 yards in, and I like chunk it or blade it. It's like, what are you doing? Like, come
Exactly.
on. But I mean, that was back when I was like kind of
Too many
too many
variables. He had
fingers.
too many
Yeah.
variables, though.
Way too
That
many
was it,
variables.
you know.
Yeah, I still
And-
have way too many, but it's
Well-
okay. I'm working on it.
Well, you know, that's the whole thing too. Is we're just
I'm still
trying to
working on it.
He's still working on it
Everybody
because
is.
even though he has me to help him understand, he knows what he's doing wrong.
Yeah.
But even so, it takes time. Like once you get to realizing what's going on, then it's like, oh, okay. Then you know how to really like focus in on what you need to.
Then you're like
especially with our
Jedi.
guidance.
Then it's like Jedi.
Well, yeah,
then
we're not
it's
going to
like,
steer you wrong, but you have to get into that mindset of you have to trust what we're saying.
Correct.
And you have to also buy into it because you can actually tell like, oh, this is it. Because most golfers, when they're out on the golf course, you ask them, where's your club face at? Like in your backswing
No
or
idea.
at the top or takeaway, whatever. And they look at you like, I don't know. I've never thought of that.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay. And then you like talk to any great golfer and they're like, oh, okay, well,
I
I'll
know
show you.
exactly
Like
where
it's
at.
right here. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, well, okay. But it's repetition. And that's what we're trying to get people is proper repetition of the proper movements, but it's broken down into the simplistic form that's never been taught really in a
Love it.
sense before.
And it's understanding
Or
that
it's taking all the, let's say all the information that's out there on the internet, all the trainings, putting it all into one simplistic form. Because we're not trying to say
correct.
anyone's wrong
Correct.
or anyone's completely right.
Yeah.
We're just trying to say what we believe in the most because it's been what we've seen has been the most productive.
And we've tested it. We've
And we have
collected the
tested
data.
it too, and it
like,
does work.
We,
Yeah,
we've
yeah,
seen like,
yeah.
okay, this is what's happening. This is what the better players are doing. They're pushing against the handle a certain way. The club
Yep.
is doing a certain
Yep.
thing because of those
The
pressures.
pros are doing everything we're talking about. It's
Exactly.
just hard to understand it because it's hard when you look at a pro swing. Where do your eyes follow? You look at the
Their body.
overall idea of how majestic their move looks.
Yes.
You don't dial into, oh, their hands were doing this at this point. The club face looked like this in their takeaway,
Right.
and then it didn't move in the backswing
Yeah.
like to the top, and then it like he's really ripping his hips open, or this guy's not, and he's decelerating. It's like, well, what's he really doing? But it's like once you understand what we're talking about, and let's say this, once we basically train you guys to understand the differences of 3 grips, you can go and watch golf or watch somebody on the range and say, oh, well, I know what they're doing now.
Got it.
Like
Yeah.
I actually can make sense out
That's
of
awesome.
it. And it's not like completely clueless.
And
Of,
that's how
oh,
we
how
watch
does he
golf.
look? Like, how does he do this?
That's how we watch golf. I mean,
oh, totally.
we
Every
look at
swing I
every tour
see, I know,
player,
I feel
it's
like I know
boom.
exactly what he did.
Correct.
And I could tell him what he did and what he could also even possibly do better if
Correct.
he needed to.
Which is like, I can't wait. We're going to have a segment just separate from the podcast on our YouTube channel where we just analyze tour players and you just
Yeah,
like walk me through like,
totally.
hey, how is this guy
Grip
like doing
type,
what he's doing?
posture, how they're controlling their set, their lag. So lever, lag, and release is going to be one of the
That's
biggest
huge.
topics
I can't
coming
wait to
up.
start talking about
lever,
that.
lever, lag, and release is going to be really cool. And we're going to also introduce our preset and pump drill, which is to
Ooh.
perfect your lever, lag, and release.
Yes.
Simplest way to really honestly like learn the golf
the
swing. We
secret.
can teach it to you in 5 minutes.
It's the
So,
secret.
yeah, it,
Like,
it really
it's
is.
the
Takes some
drill
time
that-
to get used to, but you know,
It's the drill that you're going to want to do like every day in your living room.
I've broken par before with no warm-up routine and doing the pump drill
100%.
the entire round on one of the most difficult golf courses, and also had a hole-in-one with a 5-iron from 194 yards.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
And I had a witness.
In Florida.
3 pump drills.
Yes.
So, yeah.
The pump drill is just, it really gives you an understanding of how the trail arm goes from bent to straight. And if you understand how that trail arm goes from bent to straight, you realize that all the unnecessary body movements are not needed.
And even the lead hand too, with how
Yeah,
you push. But
for
it's
sure.
more the parameters of how far do I push? How far do I have to keep the club head up and back? So the idea is that, you know, we're going to talk about the butt end of the golf club goes to the middle of your lead leg, and the club head is up and back to the maximum. And if you can get it to knee high, which is very low, most people are like up here above waist high before they let it release, and then there's too much release area.
Yeah.
Once we get down here lower, it's like now the club can bottom out into the ground, and
Got
once
it.
you get that, it's like an explosion
Then you
of
can
power.
pin- then you can
then
pin
you
the club
you
face
didn't
to the
never
ball.
realized how
Right.
much force you can generate just by lever lagging and releasing,
Love it.
opposed to
Love-
thinking of all this body stuff.
Lever lag release. I can't wait. That's gonna be something that's really exciting. And
Yeah.
nobody's ever really heard the golf swing talked about that way before. So I can't wait for that. There's one more thing I want to talk about before we wrap up.
Mhm.
Can we just talk about DeChambeau? Like he just had his wrist surgery. Like, can you give me like a little understanding of why that you think that happened? Because I've got my theories of why I think it happened. For the people that are watching and listening, why did DeChambeau have this happen?
There's 2 things. I think that first off, when you look, you know, he's a golfing machine advocate, which is, you know, it's a cool system.
Which is awesome.
Kudos to him.
Nothing wrong with
He
that.
likes to analyze all these things and take it into consideration. But the problem, I think, is that
With his wrist in particular, though.
yeah, but so
Yeah.
what it comes down to though is that he's trying to think of the golf club being a complete extension of his arms to his shoulders.
Mm.
So if you can create a complete one unit connection where that's why his lead wrist is neutral, he bows because from here he just can strictly use his claw pressures he holds on to and pushes down with from the top with his lever and lag.
Yes.
But also then can rip his body as much as he wants. And relative to how much he pushes down and against the handle, that will influence how far the ball can go. So can he hit these 400-yard drives? Absolutely. But then give him that 65-yard, you know, pitch shot after that monster drive. And how do we control that same, you know, sequence of movement, right?
Right.
So much body rotation and then taking it all out.
Do you think
Or
his-
really trying to control. So here's the thing. this is one topic. We're going to get more into this down the road. We're going to do another topic on this very soon, actually, because I want to talk about this because of Rory, and I'm a huge Rory fan. But people that use like the high end athletes like can bomb it off the tee, but they just have a hard time with their short game controlling wedges. And it's just, it looks good, but in my opinion, the more you use your body and your legs with your wedges, the worse you're going to be.
I agree.
If you can get your lower body and upper body out of the equation, control the club with your hands and arms, you are going to be so much better off and consistent. And then you just add your lower body into the equation, not more upper body technically, for the long game.
Right.
And then you're good.
Love it.
Right.
But would you say that if he had a stronger grip, he would be able to like support all the speed?
It'd be a different type of swing though, completely.
With DeChambeau?
Yeah,
DeChambeau,
because you look at right now, DeChambeau has a huge swing.
Yeah.
Like huge. So you're going to minimize his body by 50 and then utilize his hands by 50 more.
Because his buddy, that Kyle Berkshire, that is like the longest driver
Kyle
in the
Berkshire,
world.
honestly, in my opinion, he has the best swing technically
in the world.
For how big his swing is and how he can maximize performance. He could be on the PGA Tour, I would say, if he could learn the rest of the game.
I watch him on social media. He's a stud. Like Kyle Berkshire, we're huge Kyle Berkshire fans.
Oh, definitely, dude.
We love you,
swing
bro.
Fundamentals
like,
down.
I watched him last night on his YouTube channel, and he's just creates great content. But his grip is so
and that's
perfect.
Part of the reason his setup is perfect.
Like his locked elbows.
He's on plane. He stays inside out.
Claws.
And also, by the way, Scotty Scheffler with the trail foot move kind of thing, he also has the same kind of thing. He actually holds his right side back from the top and fires into the lead side to create a brace, which actually then, I know it's kind of complicated, but when you look at Rory McIlroy's hips from the top of his swing open up and then close at a degrees that's higher than most people can even open their hips, and then they refire close, meaning that it's like a reverse rotation effect. That's how the hands and arms are actually released with lag when you start creating that kind of torque. But Kyle Berkshire, though, in a sense, right, he's got the most enormous amount of probably lever and lag you can possibly imagine to release. But then because of his perfect footwork, he can actually control it and hit a few great amazing drives in a row.
I mean, it was so cool because I was watching like him in that competition that he just did recently with the World Long Drive, and he's hitting like high draws.
Yeah,
and it's just so beautiful to watch.
Like I bet his launch angle and spinner rate were optimal.
They were so perfect.
You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like crazy.
That are like monsters. And they're like steep and hitting across the ball and spinning it.
3,500
like
backspin rates. And
You can't overpower
that
the golf
dude
ball
probably
with your
can barely
shoulders.
break 90.
Exactly.
Right. Kyle Berkshire, I think he is actually like a 2 handicap.
I think he's better than that. Like I've watched him like because he hits the ball so far. That, I mean,
it's not about the far thing. It's more about though how he does it though.
Correct.
Because his grip's so good and his set's so good. I bet if you asked him how to hit a 15-foot chip, he'd step to it and you'd see the same grip, same locked elbows, and he would actually be able to control it.
And he was good. Like he played at like college golf and like he's been a good player before he was a long driver.
Sure.
But it's because of his claws and his connection to the club.
That's what it all comes back to, guys. That's what we're gonna say. We're gonna walk everyone through the short game. And I don't care if you are already a scratch golfer, but you want to get better, which everyone does.
Everybody does.
We can explain to you some simple things that I know are going to trigger your, or like kind of get your, mind thinking about, okay, this actually makes more sense. And then we're gonna explain how to do it and try it out, and then let us know how it works.
Exactly, and it's really gonna help. I mean, we're not.
Yeah, we're gonna break this down for you too. I mean, really, as simple as we can.
We're holding their hand through it.
Yeah,
like, this isn't like we're not just throwing something at you. Like, here, buy this book.
Definitely not. It's not gonna be like the normal videos you've been used to watching on YouTube or whatever. It's gonna be very in depth, very simple though, to the point, and it's not gonna be boring. We're gonna try to get the point across, show you the drills you have to do. And then it's up to you how many drills you want to do to get to the point of, where your goal is.
And we're not using like big words and things like that, like trying to make ourselves sound smarter. Like we don't have to do that.
Vertical displacement schemes.
Oh my
and
gosh,
stuff.
it's insane. Like some of the stuff I've heard. It's like, listen, man, just because you're insecure and you don't know enough about the golf swing, so you have to use big words to make yourself feel better, doesn't make that any better when it comes to trying to teach somebody how to play better golf.
Yeah.
But that's a different story for a different day.
Yeah.
But I'm excited. We got a lot of really cool content coming. I appreciate you guys watching and listening. A lot of links in the description down below.
Yeah.
Social media.
We'll have my
We got-
artwork.
We got his artwork. I
Yep,
mean,
yep.
he's doing an awesome art commission right now. We can't talk about it right now, but it's a really exciting project. But Jonathan does insane golf abstract artwork.
Yes.
He's
Check
the
out
best
my
in the world.
website.
He's super talented.
It's gonna blow up soon.
Yes,
get it while
absolutely.
you can now
Get it,
for a cheap price.
Right. It's like it's like the NFTs. Like get this price low because it's gonna go up high. It's gonna blow up. But we've got a lot of cool content coming. We got our book coming, comic book, NFTs,
even our board game we're working on.
Oh, dude.
We got a lot of stuff going, guys. We're attacking this in every avenue to make this game as cool as possible.
Every way. I mean,
fun and, effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At Claw Revolution, we're injecting new life into golf. Hope you guys join us for the ride.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.